In today's video, I'm going to break down exactly how I made just under $18,000 in 1 week of trading with proof. I'm going to give you my exact strategy and break down my best trading day from this last week, which was $12,000. Now, I want to preface this by saying that weeks like this have not been the norm for me this year. I've been averaging $1,000 to $2,000 a day. It's been a much slower year than last year where I made $842,000 with proof. But nonetheless, I've been getting my steam back, I've been putting on a little more risk, and now I'm excited to share with you the strategies that I've been working on. And it's also worth saying too, that I'm not gonna sit here like most gurus and have super fancy editing and feed you a bunch of BS. I'm going to keep it real with you, right? Weeks like this are great. My biggest trading day last year was almost $90,000. I haven't even came close to that this year. But what I have done is simplified my trading, gotten it to be virtually stress-free, and I've been raising my son, having a great, peaceful life, making a few $1,000s a day trading, and now finally ready to put some risk on. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all being here. Make sure if you haven't already, you tap in, hit that subscribe button, and let's get to the education. Now, for our agenda today, we have 3 things to talk about before we hit the charts. I like to put my education for you guys in slides and also in charts and price action because I understand you guys learn different ways. What I've found in my 8 years of experience is that if you can combine both with formal education such as this and then real-time examples, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, if you can combine the 2 of those, you're in a much better spot to comprehend and apply to your own trading. So we're going to go over today finding levels, how that was important for me last week and how it's important for my system. We're going to go over price action and risk management, how I trade price action and how I manage risk and how I know my risk before each trade. And then finally, some rules for execution that I have for myself. So as far as finding levels goes, there are several key factors in accurately finding levels, applying them, and executing on them. First is time frames. Now I have my time frames that I like to use to find levels in order. It just so happens it goes from biggest to smallest, but that is how I use them. We have the weekly. I look for the overall trend on the weekly. I like to see increasing weekly volume in trends and decreasing weekly volume in reversals. I use the daily chart. I use that for more of a up-to-date trend finding tool. And I also use that for gaps. If I'm ever looking for gaps, it is always on the daily chart. And finally, I primarily find my day trading levels from the hourly chart. I find my trend, I find my gaps in closer uptrend, and then I use the hourly chart to solidify my levels and make my daily game plan. Next up is gaps. One single gap this last week made me a few $1,000s on one trade. It is important. It is extremely important to know where gaps are for multiple reasons. For one, they typically act as magnets. They don't always fill, but a lot of the time they do, and when they do, it can be aggressive. It also shows us where price action was very strong to one direction or the other. Typically speaking, with a gap, it's because pre-market we moved up heavily in one direction or the other. That means that at one point we had a lot of buyers or had a lot of sellers at that area, and there's likely going to be good action. And finally, key support and resistance. Now, if you're new here, you're probably saying, this Jay Dunn guy seems pretty simple. And that's right, because I am. I use volume, I use price, I use intraday time frames for my day trading, I use hourly, daily, and weekly charts for my levels, and I execute. I've watched the ICT guys. I've watched these super complex guys, and I think that, in my humble opinion, all their strategies are very, very complicated. And I've found through years of making over $2 million with proof that the simpler I keep my trading, the more disciplined I keep my trading, and the more systemized I keep my trading, the more money I make. Being said, my strategy rules. I trade price action, and that is all I trade. Rule number 1 is I trade on the 1 minute and the 5 minute chart intraday. That is primarily all that I use intraday. 2, I have a strict rule of no level, no trade. If I don't have a key level, if I don't like price action in set area, I will not take a trade. 3, I must have at least 2 confirmations. Now I'm going to show you all of this on the charts in just a moment, but it's critical to have in writing too your rules so you can look back on them, you can keep yourself accountable, and you can keep moving forward with your system. 4, I go into every trading day with a watch list, which I create on Instagram at JDunTrades every single morning if you're interested to join me for free. and game plan. Number 5, discipline is the number one thing I've found to hold most traders back. I've taken multiple polls across social media, and I find almost every time that what really holds traders back isn't necessarily strategy, isn't necessarily the market, it's their discipline and their consistency. And that is what I pride myself on helping my students with and helping you guys with most. I want you to focus every single day on becoming a disciplined person. And that right there will translate to your trading. I can almost guarantee it. Become a disciplined person, get more discipline in your trading. It happens almost every single time. And finally, execution and consistently. A quote that I love is discipline over dopamine. And a few rules I have for myself and my execution are as follows. I never average down, I never boredom trade, and I never revenge trade. Those 3 things alone, along with overtrading and over position sizing, are typically what ruins traders' careers, makes them blow accounts, and ultimately makes them quit. I don't want that to happen to any of you guys. So we got to cut all those out, focus on moving forward. I always follow my system. My system is my trading, and my system is what makes me money and helps me keep my money. I never embrace a gambling mindset. It can seem fun, but again, discipline over dopamine. I never go a day without journaling. I haven't in almost 8 years. Now, that's a lie. I've missed a few days over my 8 years of trading and learning, but for the most part, I do not miss days of journaling trades, whether it's on paper or on my trading journal, TradeZella. I never go a day without a game plan. Never, ever, ever. I'm always prepared. I never enter any trade without at least 2 confirmations. That is key, my friends. You have to have at least 2 confirmations to give yourself an edge and increase your probabilities in any trade that you take. Now, for my strategy, this was the day that I made over $12,000. And money aside, it perfectly demonstrates how my strategy works and is very simple to follow so that you can implement these strategies and these tips into your own edge. Now, I took 3 trades this day. I went 3 for 3, which is more trades than I typically take. I'm typically a 2 trades a day type of guy. And specifically speaking, if I take 2 losses, I am 100% done. That is my loss limit. And you'll come to find, I like to talk about losses a lot because for one, I feel like it's not talked about enough. But for 2, I always judge traders not by their wins, but by their losses. For my students, if I can get all my students to simply have smaller losses and have more discipline, oftentimes I will see their wins increase, I'll see their profitability increase, and I'll see them ultimately end up making more money and eventually becoming profitable. I have the same philosophy about myself. I like to keep my losers small, my winners big, and have more winners than losers. So on this trading day, let's start from the top. The first trade of the day I took was on puts. Now, if we look down here on this 5-minute chart, I typically don't trade for the first 15 minutes. If I have a really good level, right? If I have a daily macro level or something, I might take a trade. But typically speaking, I'm waiting the first 15. On this day, we had some pre-market resistance here around this 541.8. We came up, failed. Came up again, failed. And what do we notice about these candles? Our buying volume is decreasing, right? We tried to go up again, volume's decreasing, try to go up again. So on this breakdown, on this break of structure down to here, I enter puts right around this 540.36 with a stop above high of day right here at 541.6. Now, what do we notice about this particular trade? In here, I enter puts. I'm not talking about how much money I'm going to make. I'm not talking about price targets first. I'm talking about how much am I going to risk on this particular trade. And to be blatantly honest with you, because this was in the first 30 minutes, this was a move that I scalped. So I caught this move right here. We moved down and had this aggressive move down. I ended up selling this right around this 539. So still an okay, like 1.5 to 1R trade, but not the greatest overall. Again, first 30 minutes, little scalp, nothing big. My second biggest trade of the day comes with this 537 area bounce. Now, this is something that I gave Team Bull before it happened. How did I have a good idea that we would bounce at 537? Well, we go to our daily chart, and what do we notice about this particular level right here? We had a daily gap that we aggressively gapped over. We never retested. And so when we came back down here, I had a very high probability bounce that we would come down and we would bounce this area. Whenever we see daily gaps that align with our trend, there's always a high probability that we are going to have that gap act as a magnet and then go forward, fill that gap, and keep moving in the trend's direction. Most of the time, not all the time. Gaps don't always fill, and it doesn't always work like this, but this time it did. Now we go here to look at the 5-minute chart. I didn't personally enter right at the bottom on this trade. Let's go back to our chart over here. Excuse me. I didn't personally enter right at the bottom here. Where I entered on this trade was on this next candle. When we closed this candle strong with a strong 5-minute hammer to the upside, I enter right here, and where do you think I put my stops? The low of day. This is my favorite type of trade. And why do you think that is? Because when you have an aggressive push in the direction you want, you can define your risk below that candle. I get filled right here around 538.4-ish, about $1 higher, give or take. So I have $1 of risk on this trade, meaning I want to see at least $2 to $3 of move up. I want at least 2 to 3 R per trade that I'm putting real risk on. As you can see, enter at 538.4-ish, end up trimming on the way up, and we end up getting $8 out of this move. $8 out of this move. Now, I did not capture this whole $8. Let's make that very clear. Extremely clear. I did not capture this whole move. I captured a good piece of this move up. I made a few $1,000s off this trade and called it a day there. However, there was a third trade that comes into the picture, something that I typically don't do. Now, we get to this top part here, this resistance at this 547 area, 548, and we see several aggressive sell candles to the downside. Now, this is a big part of my strategy when I'm trading reversals. Whenever I see two aggressive moves on the 5-minute chart to either direction, whether it's up or down, typically that is a trend setting pattern. So we see aggressive move 1, strong volume, aggressive move 2, strong volume. On this third candle here, I buy puts on this move up. I don't get this top fill, I get filled right around here at this previous support turn resistance in the middle of this impulse candle right here. Now on this particular trade, I like having my stops on these. Say I'm entering here above high a day, but that's a little too wide of a stop. So in this particular trade, my stop on this was above 546.6, the second impulse candle's high. So there's a good chance if we break above this candle, we go up and we retest high a day, and it results in a larger loss for me holding that trade. So I enter puts here, and I'm looking, because I have about $1 risk, again, 80 cents a dollar risk, give or take. I want around $1.50, $2 plus move down. We get that and more. From 545.6 all the way down to this low here of like 543-ish. I hold this trade and this move down, and I don't capture this down here. I capture this in here, and I make myself some solid money. Now again, guys, trading is not about hitting the home run. That's why you're never seeing me say, oh, I entered here and I caught this whole move. That's most gurus. Most gurus are lying. They haven't actually made any money in their life. What trading is, what profitable, consistent trading is hitting base hits, having some big trades here and there, and mostly managing our losers, managing our downside to keep risk at a minimum. That is the key. I manage my risk on the upside. I always define my risk above key areas before the trade happens, and I let my trades play out. Now, my strategy is predicated on bigger wins than losses and having more wins than losses. Right? The more R multiple you have, the less win rate you need. I personally have a pretty high win rate, so my R multiple doesn't need to be quite as high. It all depends on how your system goes, how you trade personally, and what fits you and your psychology best. That is where I come in and my team comes in. That is why in our mentorship program, we take 100 students, we break down exactly what works for you, give you 6 weeks of live classes, 1v1 attention, and ultimately help you build your edge. So again, we offer that. Most of our education is free. However, if you'd like to invest in yourself, invest in some mentorship, we are the place for you and would love to help you learn, level up, and hopefully win. So God bless. I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and let's learn and keep leveling up together. God bless.